So in this room today, there is a whole generation, the generation of Dr. Sajata and the family, the generation before us, our generation, and also the generation that we aim to inspire. And I think Haruna started well by saying that this lecture is for no reason but to honor the legacy of Dr. Sajata. My first rubber, today I have with CRPD, my first rubber, I keep telling people, rubber is basically hustle. My first hustle in the consultancy work in academic research was given to me by Dr. Sajata. You know, that's when I learned how to design questionnaires. That's when I learned how to do quite a number of stuff. And this first consultancy was given to us then by Madi Jobate here, sitting right here. And we were doing this research at the height of dictatorship.
The Center for Research and Policy Development organized its inaugural Dr. Sajata lecture on Friday, featuring a presentation by award-winning Gambian legal scholar Dr. Satan Nabane. The lecture, titled "The Gambia at a Crossroads for Gaining a Republican Future," was held at the Sadauda Karaba Jawara International Conference Center in Bijilo. This inaugural lecture offers an opportunity to explore democratic consolidation by reaffirming the principles of republicanism. It examines how democratic values can be acknowledged, restored, consolidated, and preserved through constitutional changes and strengthening. The event gathered notable scholars, researchers, activists, and academics working in fields related to democracy and development in the Gambia. These speakers shared their expertise and experience to promote and inform an active citizenry. The lecture aims to inspire individuals and communities to engage actively in the Gambia's future through informed dialogue and civic participation, ideals championed by Dr. Taal throughout his life. During her lecture, Dr. Satan Nabane addressed 10 contextual issues, including agriculture, the constitutional framework, gender issues, education, security, and health.
Number two, I think we also think about weak institutions, right? And I mean, I'm sure all of you will agree that it continues to serve as one of the major critical roadblocks to the Gambia's national development as well. And you know, I think for me, as we think about weak institutions and what that means, is really thinking about how we reform governance structures as well. So thinking about my own take is, and I know this might be a radical take, and it will take more than just saying it, is really a need to perhaps overhaul our governance system, right? And I was zeroing on two. I think one is really thinking about you know, the judiciary, as obviously as we know, during the Jammeh regime, the judiciary was co-opted, but also there were active attempts at eroding judicial independence through, you know, whether it was through the threats, it was through the lack of security, but also, as I recently indicated, in a book chapter that I did as part of the the Cambridge Handbook of Foreign Judges on domestic bench. I talked about foreign judges on the Gambian bench and the implications for that. And I think as we think about the judiciary, I think we can also acknowledge, obviously, positive trends as well, right? One is the Gambianization of the judiciary, which has, I think, has been one of the most progressive things that we've seen since the transition as well. In relation to that, but I think also as we think about, as I said, especially with regard to the special accountability mechanisms and the next steps and phases for the transitional justice process, for the Gambia to stay on track, the judiciary is important as we think about support that's needed, as we think about what it means for them to be an active player, an active actor in ensuring constitutional ideas, in ensuring that our democracy is protected as well in relation to that.
She added that the Gambia is at a point where they need not just strong leadership, but ethical leadership.
That we also need to talk a little bit about is compromised leadership. I've already alluded to this before, but I think the Gambia is a point where what we need is strong, not just strong leadership, not a capable leadership, but we do need ethical leadership. Because really leadership is the cornerstone of any successful nation. But I also think part of our challenge is not that you know, our leaders do not have perhaps well-intentioned ideas, but I also think that partly as well we do have leaders that come to leadership roles in very different ways, sometimes accidental ways, right? And so I think that also provides for us as well, especially as we think about how do we strengthen our leadership, is also thinking about what our leadership capacity needs, especially even for those that are currently in leadership roles or coming up as well, especially thinking about what that looks like. So, I mean, it could be as simple as, I don't know, having a training for having leadership training for somebody that's newly appointed as a head of institution or as a minister, take a couple of, do a 1 year leadership course or something, but that really engages in terms of being very intentional about what it means to be a leader, about what it means to be an ethical and an inclusive leader within that context.
He emphasized that the Gambia requires not only strong leadership but also ethical leadership. Additionally, she called for a re-evolution of the education system, stressing that the current system does not meet the country's needs.
Not so much, but I think given the current context that we find ourselves, I think there needs to be really a rethinking of our educational system. And I think we should start from the point of acknowledging that teachers and lecturers and professors do not know it all. And it is really important, and I wanted to spotlight Paulo Freire, an influential Brazilian educator, especially his criticism of current teaching methods in his work, The Banking Concept of Education, where he, for example, argued that our traditional schooling as a one-way street really means that teachers passively transmit knowledge, like you deposit money in the bank, right? Neglecting to encourage students' active participation in critical thinking. Sometimes we're having a conversation and we're like, why was I drawing a cockroach in junior school? I mean, I don't know. Right. But thinking about what our educational systems are. I think when we think about curriculum, and perhaps there are more updated books, right? But thinking about and going back to this idea that if students are reading books that are Western books that are talking about snow, that are talking about things that we don't have in our own context, it becomes difficult to be able to translate that very theoretical knowledge into practical and tangible understanding that this is not something that works with. I mean, instead of snow, we can talk about the rainy season, right? As well. So I think that our educational system as it is, it's not fit for purpose, and that's the reality.
Madam Juka Fatou Jabang, CRDP board chair, remembered Dr. Taal as an outstanding and modest civil servant.
Let me conclude by saying that he has left an enduring impact on the Gambian intellectual landscape. Also, that Dr. Taal was one of the finest and the brightest civil servants with a captivatingly modest and unassuming character in the history of the Gambia. One with a very high profile in the national consciousness. We can only hope that inspired by his example, our generation and the ones behind us will rise in his stead, serving our motherland, with humility and diligence.
In her statement, Dr. Sajat Taal's eldest daughter, Ulimata Sajat Taal, founder of Fajar Bispo, remarked that her father's legacy of dedication to education and public service continues to inspire them daily.
My father's dedication to the development of the Gambia was ever fulfilling. His passion for public service and his drive to make a difference in our community inspired me and my siblings deeply. He instilled in us the importance of adding value to people's lives and striving for excellence in everything we do. His approach to life was always centered around the question, how do we create Gambian excellence? The CRPD embodies the ideals of my father, championed encouraging individuals and communities to actively participate in shaping the future of the Gambia through informed dialogue and civic engagement. His legacy of commitment to education, public service, and community development lives on through his institution and through all of us who were fortunate enough to know him.
Following Dr. Nabane's lecture, a discussion was held featuring Madi Jobate, a human rights defender, Nengone Jeng, a lawyer, and Professor Per Gomez, the Minister for Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology.
I'm happy we have a lecture like this that really has brought that very important issue, because the question is, do we know ourselves? I mean, do we know, we say we are a republic, do we know what is a republic? You know, when we say republic, what is a republic? So I think given the issues she raised, it makes that question still alive. That Ghana's, probably the reason this country is as it is simply because citizens are yet to consume, yet to acquire, yet to embrace the idea of republicanism.
Dr. Aliou Badara Sadia Taal was a renowned Gambian intellectual and senior lecturer in political science at the University of the Gambia. Reporting for Kirfatu, I am Ramatulai Jao.